What a fireside. Thanks so much to Karen and to Karen Walker and Karen Leland. Karen Walker, CMO at Intel with insights on modern leadership and sustainable business models. Coming up next, we have a panel discussion on something I truly care, and that's why we work so much at Webit for having the right ratio between women and female and male speakers, between different type of representatives of from different parts of the world, making sure that all voices are heard. So it's all about diversity and inclusion. And we do believe that this is the catalyst for corporate sustainability. And we have Angela Antetomaso, a dear friend and correspondent of Forbes, to moderate this panel. Angela, live from New York.
Hello and welcome. I'm Angela Antetomaso, correspondent of Forbes. I'm based in New York, and I have the pleasure to introduce you today to two wonderful female business leaders who will be with us today for the Global Impact Week. Today we meet Keri Gilder, CEO at Colt Technology Services. Keri, welcome. So happy to have you here.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here.
And also Lisa Edwards, CEO and President at Diligent Corporation. Welcome, Lisa. So happy to see you.
Thank you. Thank you. Happy to be here as well.
As we said, I mean, we have two female leaders, business leaders, very important. I just want to give you a bit of a background. So Keri has been appointed to the role of CEO Colt Technology Services in May 2020. She's responsible for executing Colt's strategy, which centers around transforming the way the world works through the power of connectivity. Before becoming CEO, Keri was CEO at Colt, and she also in the past worked at Sienas, at Lucent Technologies, at Hughes Aircraft, and she holds a Bachelor of Business Administration degree from New Mexico State University, and she lives in London with her family. So this is Keri Gilder, and let's see Lisa Edwards' background. Lisa is President and CEO at Diligent Corporation from September 2020. She's responsible for commercial growth and performance, including global sales, marketing, customer success, and 24/7, 365 worldwide support. Previously, Lisa worked at Visa and KnowledgeX. She serves on the board of directors at Colgate-Palmolive and holds an MBA from Harvard and a BA from Stanford University. And she lives in San Francisco Bay with her family. So again, welcome to Keri and welcome to Lisa. So happy to have you here. Obviously, the first question is definitely, can you tell me more? Can you tell us more about your experience as executives? What brought you there? How did you get there? And also, what were the choices that you had to make to get where you are today? Keri, can we start with you?
Yeah, happy to. I think every career journey is different depending on who you are and what you want to do. But my career journey started in the technical realm. So my degree was actually management information systems, and it was under the business college. But I started actually as a programmer, and I started building out, technology and networks throughout the world on the enterprise, whether that be in New York for some of the financial banks or in Los Angeles, actually for the Los Angeles Times. And so I've architected networks, I've built networks. I've started to look at going into sales about in the probably second half of my career, because I took my technical knowledge and decided that I could use that to build solutions for other companies as well. So I moved from the technical realm to the business realm when I made that leap into sales, then into sales management, then into general management, which actually ended up bringing me over here into London 9 years ago. And I think, when I look at career choices, one of the key choices that I made was always being a little bit scared about that next opportunity that I was going to go after. And I think moving my entire family from Denver, Colorado, where I was based, to London 9 years ago was one of those big career decisions where it was really scary, but it's one of the best things that I did in order to advance my global knowledge and understanding of how the world works. And I think that's absolutely critical, is to always take that leap of faith within yourself, have the confidence to actually just be a little bit uncertain and have that little bit of fear to challenge yourself for that next position and know that you have the capability to do so. And that's what I felt I did throughout my career, and it paid dividends. And I moved from the GM of Europe, Middle East, and Africa to be the CCO running sales, marketing, and customer service management for Colt. And then, as you stated, I moved into the CEO role in May, right as the start of the pandemic happened in 2020. And that's been quite a journey, running mostly virtual teams throughout the last year and a half on that passage. But I'd say the one biggest thing that I tell everyone on that career journey is, if you're going to run and you want to be in an international or a global career, the one thing you have to understand first and foremost is time zones, because it is the most challenging thing that you will have to deal with in your career. And it will also pay dividends, again, if you understand how to actually bring those cultures and communities together around the globe.
So a wonderful international experience, Keri. And as you said, also, as a CEO, you started working in the middle of the pandemic. And I can say the same about Lisa, because Lisa, you started in September 2020. So again, the middle of the pandemic, and you also have an international experience. Can you tell us more about yourself, and obviously what were your most important choices, and how did you get where you are today?
Sure. Yeah, I am definitely also a COVID hire or part of the Great Resignation, depending on which side of the coin you look at. And it has been a very unique and weird experience starting a new job in a pandemic. But I think it was also, for me, it was actually a facilitating thing, because this is a job that I would not have taken if the pandemic hadn't come along. Specifically, I had spoken with the CEO of the company multiple times and said, no, I'm not interested in moving to New York. I'm good here. And at some point he called me back and said, I don't think this job needs to be in New York. So I actually do think that for me personally, and for many, many people, the pandemic has actually opened up possibilities of working from anywhere, or working from, where you need to make it work for your life and your career. So I think that's been, a really interesting development of the pandemic, is really sort of, finally running that A/B test that every CFO has ever wanted to do on, do you really need to travel everywhere to, sell to your customers? And then also opening up, large parts of communities that may not have had access to great tech jobs or things like that. So we're looking for talent globally as well as a part of that. But back to your question on my career, yeah, it's been a long journey. I have lived internationally. Right after I graduated from Stanford, I moved to Mexico City for 3 years and worked there in a consulting firm. And I will say it was one of the most rewarding experiences of my life. And I do think that anyone trying to go into a big role in a big company probably needs international experience these days. It's just a very important thing. And I think particularly when you move to a place where it is not your native language, it really builds empathy, and you lose your eloquence, and it's a build back from there in terms of getting your your feet back under you. So from there I did a series of things. I was an entrepreneur. I've been in the tech industry as well. So Keri and I have a lot in common there. I've always been a little bit jealous of people with engineering degrees though. So I defer to you on that. But I did a couple of startups. So I started a company that I sold to Knight Capital in the fintech space. I was CEO of a company that sold to IBM, and then was in fintech for a number of years before being at Salesforce for 8.5 years. And, I think the thing that got me to think about moving was, evaluating how many more jobs do I have left in me, maybe 2 or 3. And as I look at that, you know, what do I want my legacy to be? And how do I want to leave a mark on the world? And, you know, do I want my tombstone to say she sold a lot of software on the internet, or do I want to try to be a part of something bigger and more meaningful? And so to me, part of the move was around thinking through what my priorities were and aligning with a company that had very similar values. So Diligent has done quite a bit in the way of thinking through diversity at the leadership level and specifically in the boardroom, and it's something I'm very passionate about. So it was kind of the perfect role for me at the perfect time.
Fantastic. Again, a very international experience, and as you say, you know, also moving and changing languages as well. That's not easy. Now, I wanted to ask both of you again, actually, because this is another very important topic. Did you have to sacrifice anything? Do you feel you had to sacrifice anything, or did you have to sacrifice much, you know, to get where you are today? And how do you manage, you know, personal and professional life? Has it been easier now, you know, even with the pandemic? Probably also things have changed in the last couple of years, year and a half, couple of years. Keri.
Yeah, I get this question often, you know, how do you actually create work-life balance? Listen, I don't think balance is ever the right word for this question. I think work-life integration is more relevant in this day and time, and especially in COVID, where we've been working hybrid. I'm in my home today. I think integration is actually, you know, a better concept. And I think it's not about sacrifices. I think that's a very negative mindset. I think what you have to think about is different priorities at different times in your life. And I had a great coach that told me one time, Keri, you're going to be asked over and over again to be at this meeting or at that meeting. And as you progress in your career, you're going to have to make the decision as to how important it is for you to be in that meeting. And you're going to have to balance that with the requests that you have from your kids and your family as to what's going on in their life. And he said, you know what, at any given time, nobody's going to remember that you were in that meeting, but your kids will definitely remember that you weren't at that event. There's a finite amount of time for you to participate in your kid's life. And I've never forgotten that. And I've often been the only executive that's at one of my kids' events because I'm making that decision. And I do think it's a series of decisions. And I do think that the meetings go on. And what you find is sometimes when you're not in those meetings or you're not in those engagements, actually it's empowering your team to be more successful and to step up into some of those areas that maybe make them uncomfortable and challenge them a little bit and give them an opportunity to actually, you know, show their level of leadership and management and step their careers forward. So I always think of it as opportunity. I think about it as decision-making and prioritization. And I do think we have to get away from this thought of balance, because I think you will never have your professional life, your personal life, your financial life balanced at any given time. If you get 2 out of the 3 right, you're doing pretty good, I think. So that's kind of the philosophy that I've always had. It's worked for me. It may not work for everyone. I know kids during COVID, or parents during COVID times would say work-life integration absolutely sucks, right? Because you have your kids behind you, you're trying to manage, you know, it's extremely difficult. So I have empathy towards parents that have young children in this environment, because I know it hasn't been easy for them. And the integration of those 2 environments has been extremely difficult. So I think you just have to manage the day by day, and you have to realize it's a series of decisions. And most likely, if you make the decision for your family, your company is probably going to understand 9 out of 10 times. And when you look back, as Lisa said, on your tombstone, you're not going to regret the moments that you missed.
And that's absolutely beautiful, actually, Keri. And I can say that it's wonderful to hear that your team, your company is going to understand if you give priority to your kids. And that's exactly what counts. Lisa, did you have a similar experience? Did you have to make sacrifices?
Very similar. Yeah, Keri and I are two minds on this one as well. I don't like the term work-life balance. I think it sort of implies that you're taking a little bit of out of each of them and sub-optimizing both of them. And, you know, I agree what, you know, sacrifice is kind of a negative term. It's really prioritization and decision-making. And, you know, I will defer to a smart man that I know, Maynard Webb, who was on the board of Salesforce when I was there, and I got to know him quite well. And he said, you know, you have glass ball moments and you have rubber ball moments in your life. And the glass ball moments are if you drop it, it breaks. And the rubber ball moments are if you don't drop it, you know, if you drop it, it bounces away and you have another shot. And so I like to kind of think about things like that. Like, what are the things I can't miss? Like, I'm not going to miss the final night of the school play. But do I have to be at soccer practice? Probably not. And, you know, I think it's really just making those choices. You know, if you don't ever say no, you don't put yourself in an opportunity to be able to say yes. And so thinking through, you know, what do I not have to do? What do I not have to be at? And to Keri's point as well, you know, sometimes those meetings actually go a little better. Like when you're not there in the room, sort of with the executive decision making, you can let people be more creative and a little more freeform and organic. And then without sort of them looking at you to say, well, what do you think? And get some really creative thought from your teams and from that kind of thing. So, you know, undoubtedly there were, you know, along the way, there's things that you have to miss that you feel terribly about. And sometimes I will say, you know, every once in a while, I feel like I'm going guardrail to guardrail. I'm either over rotating on work for a while or over rotating on personal. And I think that's okay. I think it's the way that, you know, it works for me. It wouldn't work for everyone, but, you know, I feel like my son, seeing a strong female leader and seeing someone working hard to lead a team and to make a difference is as important as my being there for, you know, that third soccer game. And I think he's gotten to a point where he understands those trade-offs and sort of helps me make them and tells me what's important to him.
And I think, Lisa, I'll just add to it because you made me remember a funny moment. My daughter, who's 15, actually came to me the other day. She said, Mom, do you remember that time that I slept under your desk? And I was like, oh, I forgot that. But yeah, you know, there are those moments where you had to get the RFP done and your kid slept under your desk, and that's just the way it is. And I agree with you. I think it's role modeling in a lot of ways. I don't recommend that, but I do think it's role modeling. And I think actually it does set an example that, you know, sometimes you have to work hard and sometimes you have to work long, and that's okay.
But on that note, I actually think it's also role modeling when you leave the office and you say, I have to go and I'm going to the school play. And it's important for leaders, men and women, to create that envelope that is okay to do, and that it is okay to have a priority of having a family, and you can do both. And I think the people that sneak out of the office and leave their coat on their desk are doing a disservice to the rest of their company, to say, you know, just get your work done. And, you know, if you also have to care for your elderly mother or, go pick up your kid at school, that's okay too.
Yeah, and I wanted just to add that this is so refreshing to hear. I mean, we have so much about stigmas about, female business leaders not having the time to care about their families, or, you know, that they were not really appreciated for leaving their desk or whatever. And I feel absolutely, great. And I'm so happy to be here talking to you today and hear that you could make it to the very, very, very top and still, not have to neglect your family. So this is incredibly refreshing. I really hope so many people, so many female leaders may have this experience. But now let's go with the next question. Keri, wanted to ask you, you are leading your company's diversity council. What are the biggest challenges, and do you feel supported by the rest of the team?
Yeah, I similar to Lisa, I've been an advocate for diversity and inclusion for quite a while, and I've led multiple councils. I've developed multiple groups throughout my career, and I am super proud that actually we don't think of diversity and inclusion as an add-on in Colt. We think of it as a central part of our strategy. And that's why that I take an active part in participation as the chair of our employee resource groups. In the last year, we've made a lot of progress. We actually set up a disability accessibility network with the help of Microsoft, one of our partners, so that we could help enable our employees that do have disabilities. We've enabled some new kind of software and technology called like Recite Me that helps with dyslexia and some of the more cognitive disabilities. We've looked at new policies, for example, transitioning at work and domestic abuse support policies we've started to develop. And, you know, at the end of the day, I think you can't have inclusion without diversity. They go hand in hand, because even though you're able to attract diverse candidates, if you don't have an inclusive culture, they're not going to stick around for very long. Likewise, if you don't have an inclusive culture, you're probably not going to attract that talent. So I think they go hand in hand, although they are very, very different. And if anything, COVID has taught us is that we need programs to enable inclusivity at the leadership level. And that doesn't have anything to do with diversity. It has to do with us being in a remote environment and making sure that we're listening and we're empathetic to the voices that are around the table. And I think that's one of the key soft skills that we've been developing within the company. We've actually rolled out a Colt-wide diversity day. We've made 700 managers complete the Inspiring Inclusion training session. And I think that's critical. And that's on top of unconscious bias and some of the other programs that we're doing on the diversity side. We're very serious about this. We believe that it is critical to our strategy as a company. And we've been, you know, ranked very highly. Actually, we were ranked as the first telecom in one of the Financial Times articles as far as, you know, diversity and inclusion across, you know, FTSE 250 type companies. And so I feel like we're making progress, but we're definitely not where we need to be in order to start really driving not only our brand as Colt, but also the industry to change a little bit more. We've really made very small change in the industry in regard to diversity in particular. I think we're slightly better in inclusion, but we've got a long way to go.
Thank you, Keri. And yes, I mean, diversity inclusion are still very, very big topic. Lisa, how do you deal with that? I mean, you are responsible for the commercial growth and performance, risk, compliance. Do you think it's necessary to review corporate governance to achieve gender equality?
Sure. I mean, I think it's incredibly important. And I think it is, you know, part of it is simply if you see it, you can be it. So that's why, you know, when you get more women, more people of color, more diverse leadership in place, it somehow magically makes the company more diverse, and it starts to sort of perpetuate itself. And, you know, when I look at the leadership level, I don't buy the argument that there is a pipeline problem, because women are graduating at about 60% of college degrees, university degrees these days. And so there are more educated women out there starting out. Something happens along the way that I think we have to address, but I do think that as more women get into leadership roles and as more diverse candidates get into leadership roles, it, you know, it kind of perpetuates itself. And I'll give a very brief example because I know we have time constraints. You know, when I was looking for a new CIO to work for me at Salesforce, I got a list of about 15 white men between the ages of 40 and 50 from the great headhunter that I worked with. And I went back and said, you know, I asked for a diverse slate. And he said to me, well, but you also asked for someone who'd been in the technology industry and a fast growing company and this, that, and the other. I said, well, go back. Like, maybe this is on me. Let's look at those. What do I really need? I need someone who's got, you know, great chops on Salesforce implementations, who's run a big operation, who can deal with stress and can deal with, you know, at the time, 30,000 people who think they can do their job better than you. And so, you know, they came back to me. I found a fantastic woman. She happened to be Latina. She ended up being the longest tenured CIO at Salesforce. She was incredibly skilled and talented. And when she, you know, her group that was always like one of the less diverse groups that we had, started turning over, and it started being more female and more, you know, and more diverse. And it was fantastic to watch. So it really cemented in my brain that when you bring in diverse candidates and you do find those, then kind of magic can happen there. And you know, it's just the reality of the world. If you're working at, you know, a large automobile manufacturer, well, guess what? Women make 80% of the decision making on in that, you know, for those vehicles. So you better have some women on the board as a sounding board, as a reality check on what you're doing. So, you know, I think it, as people start to look at it as not a, it's, you know, do it because it's the right thing to do. I'm all for that, but also do it because it's good for your business. It is. There are financial rewards for having more diverse leadership teams that have been proven time and time again. And so, you know, I always tell people, like, I don't really care like what your underlying reasons are. It's still a good idea.
That's fantastic, Lisa, to hear. And Keri, do you have a similar experience? You are one of only 5 women leading global telecommunication companies and the only female member of the European Competitive Telecommunications Association CEO Council. Now, this is definitely important. Did you have a similar experience to what Lisa described? And also, you know, how do you encourage people to get, women in this case, to get into telecom, tech, digital, etc.?
Yeah, I agree with Lisa. I think we would be good friends if we lived close to each other, because I think we're on the same page on a lot of this. I don't think there's a pipeline problem. I think that there's a brand problem to some extent within our industry. I also think that there is a choice and challenge problem. And you know, Lisa just gave a fantastic example. You have to actually ask the right questions to the recruiters in order to get the right candidates that you actually want. And sometimes those aren't based upon tenure, and they're not based upon experience, they're based upon capability. So I tend to not look at CVs for what they've done, but what they can do. And I think that's where you have to have this mindset change in the management of your company, is not solely sourcing from experience, tenure, and you know what they've done, but really looking at the behavioral aspects, the leadership aspects, and the capabilities that they have that can actually lead them forward and take a chance. You have to take a chance on some people that maybe have not been in that position before. And I just did that recently with my chief strategy officer. She came over from Google, and she recently hadn't been, you know, at that level on the executive team level. I gave her a chance. I knew she was capable. She was very forward looking, and she's done a fantastic job in the first 6 months that she's been here. So, you know, I think you have to challenge the traditional process, and you have to start making your choices on your candidates a little bit differently, a little bit more forward looking. When it comes to the industry, I am the chair for the TM Forum. And what I'm really excited about is that when I took on that responsibility, me and Nick Willits, the CEO of the TM Forum, sat down, and I said, I'm not going to start another networking group. So if you want me to do that, I'm out. And he said, nope, we're actually going to do something real, and we're going to actually make real change in the industry. I said, okay, I'm in. And what we've decided to do is come up with an industry benchmark, an index for inclusion and diversity. We've developed this with Bain, providing some data science around this. We've already run a pilot with 5 separate companies. It is both on the employee sentiment around inclusion, and it includes the 5 major diversity groups. So it's metric based. It's much like the customer experience, you know, net promoter score. It's a value that can come from both areas that give that scientific metric that then we can start benchmarking where we are on these 2 different levels of requirement and strategic need when it comes to our people plans going forward. The launch has been successful. We have companies like EcoVadis, which is one of the major ESG ratings companies, backing us and saying that actually this index is going to be one of, you know, in an industry that has a brand problem. We're actually being very innovative about how we're actually starting to look at the issue in a more scientifically based way. And he's helping us to actually then institute it and start working with companies with the index to then figure out what the interventions will be. And one of those interventions I'm excited about that we just started thinking about is actually a talent consortia across the industry. And that would really be bringing in the talent that Lisa talked about, coming out of the universities, coming out of the tech schools, coming out of even, you know, some of the non-schools, but creating an environment where they can actually learn, you know, and build job experience while we're doing some education, you know, at the same time, so we can get some more of the diverse candidate pool into place. And we think that we, again, will do an industry first or vertical first here. And because we're a global industry, we can actually create a platform for these fantastic professionals coming out of university to have an international platform in play.
And that's also very interesting. I wanted to ask Lisa, we don't have much time, but I really wanted to also know from Lisa what your take is on the role of education in all of this.
It's incredibly important, and I do think that again, this is potentially a silver lining if we take advantage of it, of the pandemic, that places that maybe didn't have access to the same types of education can potentially take advantage of those digitally. So I think that there is, but there's always going to be an aspect of, you know, education is a game changer as societies, making sure that we invest in them, that we invest in you know, equality of opportunity for everyone in every school. I think I'm very passionate about it. I think it is a game changer for not just you know, where I am in the United States, but globally, and even some of the, you know, most remote places in the world. There's talent there. We just don't know them.
So our time is up, but I really would like to ask you, both of you, a very, very quick question. If you could just let me know, Keri, what is your vision for the coming decades, for the future, when it comes to diversity and inclusion?
And my vision is that we actually move the needle in a real way going forward, and that we create an environment that's inclusive, and we do that by actually involving our leadership and our management chains, and that we actually start developing this index. We get the involvement around the industry to participate in it, and I think if we do that, then it will create viral change, just like Lisa was talking about earlier.
And Lisa, what is your take? What's your vision for the future?
You know, I think that companies that are equitable, inclusive, and importantly, sustainable are going to thrive and prosper. And, you know, my hope is that our companies and our governments and our systems of leadership reflect the communities that they represent.
Thank you so much, both of you. Thank you to Lisa Edwards, CEO and President at Diligent Corporation. Thank you, Keri Gilder, CEO at Colt Technology Services. Thank you all for being here today. It has been a wonderful panel. So many very, very interesting points, so many refreshing you know, answers. And really, thank you so much for being here today, Keri and Lisa. And thank you all for taking part in this Diversity and Inclusion, a Catalyst for Corporate Sustainability panel at Global Impact Week. Thank you so much, and see you soon. Bye-bye.
Take care.